What is up, YouTube? Hello, Party Parrots. Marvel Snap just had a new patch, which means we got some fresh new data mines on cards coming this February for the Captain America Brave New World movie. Now, data mines are always some of my favorite things in Marvel Snap because they let us look ahead not only at just what new cards are going to be cooking, going to be coming to the game, but also can help us plan things like spotlight keys and collectors tokens can help us plan our very valuable resources so we can see what we want to play, and we have some really exciting cards. Now, before we get into these cards, I do want to give a quick disclaimer. These are all data mines. You will absolutely see some changes. Most of these cards stay pretty true to what they were data mined. They might get some point or two off, maybe a cost increase or decrease, but you'll usually see the same kind of effect, although even that is subject to change. So take all this with a grain of salt, but it really does help when planning things like spotlight keys and stuff to look ahead. So let's break it down with what we're getting in the Brave New World season, starting with a brand new Captain America. To kick in the Captain America Brave New World season, we have none other than Sam Wilson, Captain America. And this card is bringing in the season with a bang. He is a 2/3 with the game start ability. So think cards like Airship, Thanos, cards that high evolutionary. All of these cards also have effects that happen at the beginning of the game. With add Cap's shield to a random location. So this 2/3 is going to start the game with a card. We have not seen anything like this before. He then has the ongoing ability, you can move Cap's shield. Now, what is Cap's shield? It is a 1/1 with the ongoing, this cannot be destroyed. Then it has give your Cap +2 power when this moves to Cap's location. And I love this effect. I gave this a 4 out of 5 cards, although I might honestly be low. Maybe I'm high, but this is my pick for my favorite card of the season because it's doing something so unique. I love these kind of game start effects that let us play almost differently. And Airship, Thanos, High Evolutionary, every single one of these cards was meta at some point. And I would be surprised if this Captain America was not. But to actually break down what he is, so he's going to be a 2/3 that starts a 1/1, just completely free. Again, we've not seen anything like that. I'm really excited by this mechanic. I think it's a really cool one to have. Then ongoing, you can move Cap's shield. So you're generally going to want to play this not where Cap's shield is, so that after turn 2, you can move that Cap's shield to him. Then that will give him +2 power up to a 2/5. And already that's going to be 6 power for 2 energy. Then if you're playing this with something like Captain America, now look, it says give your Cap +2 power. And we've already seen with Doom 2099 get able to buff the Doom bots made by just regular Doctor Doom. This almost is certainly going to buff regular Captain America as well. Meaning you can bounce this between Sam Wilson Captain America and regular Captain America every turn, giving one of them +2 power. This is such a flavor win. I mean, it's basically them like fighting, bouncing the shield back and forth. Just huge flavor win. I love what it's doing. It's also, both of these cards are ongoing. So you can play Captain America Sam Wilson into the Captain America lane if you wanted to, get that buff, move the Cap shield in, give both of them +2 power. Captain America's going to be giving the shield +2 power. Move it out, move it back in. Just really, really cool, really, really fun. Is this going to be the card that brings Captain America back? Don't know. Honestly, like, it's really fun. It's really cool. I do think it's really powerful, but I can kind of see this being something like the card Scream, where it is really powerful and it is really good when you get it, enough to kind of make the deck into the metagame again. But Captain America isn't really a strong card, and a lot of the things Captain America is buffing aren't really strong. It's not that strong of a synergy. Maybe this will be the Scream, able to take that into that next level. I'm really hoping it is. Playing this with something like Spectrum could be really good in like that Captain America deck, like Jean Grey. You can like move it in, move it out. I think you could be able to play it really well. So I'm really optimistic for this card. Like I said, 4 stars. We have yet to see a game start effect not be really strong. It also has some move synergies. So something like Craven could work too if you wanted to put both Captain Americas in one lane and then a Craven in another lane. Really, really good deck building design, I think. I'm really interested to see where this card goes. I'm going to be brewing a ton with this card. I'm really excited for him. So yeah, 4 stars for me. So for our first Spotlight Cash card, we have Joaquin Torres. He is a 3/3 with the ongoing ability of the on-reveal abilities of your one-cost cards here happen twice. So first of all, he's an ongoing card, so he'll have some synergy with Captain America, which is very cool. But what he is actually going to be doing is being a essentially 3-cost Wong for your 1-drops. And so to me, this card, I gave a 3 out of 5 because I don't think it's the most exciting card, but I do think it might have a lot of power in pretty much one specific deck, and that is the just stock bounce deck. If the only thing your deck wants to be doing is playing as many 1-drops and then falconing them and beasting them and toxining them back to replay them and then black swanning them to make them cheap to then replay them and then rebounce them. This is almost like another bounce card that maybe doesn't, since it doesn't put them in your hand, might be really good for something like turn 6. I mean, if you have this card out on turn 6, it's going to be so hard for your opponents to contest that lane because you could play something like Silver Sable, Rocket Raccoon. If you played Rocket Raccoon even one time before this, it's going to be like a 114 card. That represents so much power in that lane. I think it's going to be really, like I said, hard for opponents to play around that. It also has some cool disruption synergy. Iceman could be really fun in Joaquin. So can Korg, although I don't know if he's going to be enough for like Darkhawk bounce to come back. It is a really fun idea to like play Korg into Joaquin and then get those 2 rocks. So that might be where I try him out. But like I said, I think he's probably just going to be a bounce card, and he's very interesting. We'll see if he makes that cut. Uh, One thing that I don't love about him is just that a lot of times when we get new cards for archetypes, they can help us kind of differentiate into maybe 1 or 2 different versions of the deck. We've seen a card like Corvus Glaive, which helped push. It was a discarder that was much better in Hella than it ever was in stock discard. And we've seen cards like Scream, which is a like move card, but really helped differentiate it into like the Craven Spider-Man stuff than it did the Human Torch stuff. So I really like when we have cards that kind of push in 2 different directions. I don't think Joaquin Torres does it. I mean, we already know the 1-cost cards with good on reveals. They're already played in all the bounce lists. And I think though you'll take those same ones and you will put those in your Joaquin Torres decks, and it will probably be very good. But I don't really see a ton of play outside of that. So I'm looking forward to this card, but I'm interested to see what will it be able to build with him. So overall, really cool card, really fun design too. Also coming in Spotlight Caches, we have Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. He is a 2/2 with the ability of when your opponent ends a turn with unspent energy, draw a card with 10 or more power. Now, because this is saying draw a card with 10 or more power, I am 99% sure that this means that it will pull your own 10 power card from your deck and put it into your hand, which means this is potentially card draw. And this could be, I mean, it could be card draw every single turn. Now, Marvel Snap almost never gets card draw. We have seen it with Adam Warlock, which has a huge cost of being a very underpowered body and being a very limited effect. But this, I mean, this ability, if this is triggering to even draw 1 or 2 extra cards, is potentially game winning because not only are you getting 1 or 2 extra cards, but you're going to be seeing so much more of your deck. And in a game where you're already going to be seeing 75% of your deck in any given game, even hitting 1 more card is going to make your deck so much more consistent. So, where is Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross going to see play? I think the most obvious place for him is going to be in the Surtur Scar decks. Playing him on 2 and then Surtur on 3 just seems pretty insane. You will almost certainly be hitting your 4-10 on 4, another 10 power card on 5, and then have that Scar. That deck just gets so much more consistent, and it is already a top deck. So I gave it, like, you could probably give this card 5 stars just for that one deck, but where else is it going to be able to go? And I think Airshim would actually be a really good home for this because it's going to help you deck thin. That deck can very easily use that extra energy. So if you pull like just Emperor Hulkling or even a Hulk, playing that on turn 5 could be really, really strong. So I could see this absolutely see playing Airshim. Funnily enough, I think it's also good against Airshim because they're not really designed to use all of their energy every single turn. So playing like a Surtur Scar deck against Airshim, this card will probably be very strong. And I could also see it with potentially some She-Hulk shells. Decks that are playing maybe like Moon Girl She-Hulk or the Magic She-Hulk with Infinite, maybe even like High Evil lists. There are some decks that do play a number of 10 drops that, especially in like a Magic game, it might be really hard for your opponent to curve out. And especially when everyone is playing decks like Wiccan, which they currently are now. Now, who knows what the metagame looks like in February, but if decks are playing these kind of like ramp shells, it might be very easier to trigger this Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. So while I think he might be limited, I do think that there is a lot of potential for pulling cards out of your deck. I mean, you might even want to play this in a Wiccan deck. Make sure you hit your Goliath. Go into like Goliath Magneto and some third big card. You'll have the energy from your Wiccan. You'll have it from here. So I think this card has a lot of potential. I'm going to be very curious to see where he ends up landing. I think he almost certainly has some guaranteed homes in like Surtur and Erishim, but really interested to see what we come up with when he actually releases. So 4 stars for me. I think he's really cool. Next up, coming to Spotlight Caches, we have Falcon's trusty Falcon companion, Redwing. Redwing is a 1-2 with the on reveal ability. Return one of your other 1-cost cards here to your hand and give it +2 power. And to me, this card might be the strongest card of the month. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This card to me is doing essentially what the Joaquin Torres card that we just broke down is doing, where it is going to be this really good bounce enabler, really helping your 1-drop on reveal cards, but while also being a good 1-drop on reveal itself. I think this card fits way better into bounce curves than a card like Joaquin Torres. And again, being a 1-cost is so good in that deck because you can do something like play Silver Sable on turn 1, play this on turn 2, bounce that Silver Sable to your hand, give it 2 more power, then turn 3, play that Silver Sable again into the Redwing lane, and then either play a Falcon to get them back to your hands, do it again, or Toxin to get them back to your hands, do it again. I mean, that's just a 1, 2, 3 turn combo that I don't think is going to be that hard to pull off. It seems really, really absurd to me. I think there's a really good chance this is the strongest card of the month. I also really like that, unlike Joaquin Torres, which because it's very much like Wong, you have to be playing specifically 1-cost cards with on reveals. While I think Redwing does best with a 1-cost card with on reveal, this will do better with a card like Human Torch or even something like Korg or Deadpool, cards that don't necessarily have on reveals, but it will still put them into your hand with +2 power. I think that's going to be really, really strong. I think Redwing, like I said, could be the strongest card of the month, although there is one card that I think might be rivaling him. That card is Diamondback. Datamine to be our last card coming in Spotlight Caches, although not our last card that we'll be covering in this video. We still have 2 more cards after this video, so make sure you stick around. We have Diamondback. She is a 3-3 with the ongoing ability of enemy cards here afflicted with negative power have an additional -2 power. So I gave this card a 4.5 out of 5 stars because I think this card is going to essentially be a mini Ajax. One thing that before Ajax came out, and you might have forgotten by now, it's been a while, but people were not very high on Ajax because they said, oh, like this card works best with something like Hazmat, but Hazmat's a symmetrical effect, so how good is that going to be? I mean, it's going to be like afflicting your own cards with negative power, but what we saw was that Ajax got so big that it didn't really matter that it was symmetrical because it was breaking that symmetry so strong. And this is another card that's going to really work with a card like Hazmat. You can play this out on 3, and if let's say you and your opponent have the same amount of cards in a lane, like let's say 3, if you play Hazmat on that last turn or whenever they had 3 cards, they would be getting an additional -6 power. That makes Diamondback a 3/9. That is really strong stats. And that's not even considering that you play it with something like Luke Cage, which now suddenly that's just going to be like a 3/12 because none of your cards are going to be afflicted. Or you have an Ajax. If you have Diamondback on one lane, Ajax in another, you play Hazmat, you're going to be shrinking all of your opponent's cards, growing your Ajax. Diamondback is further inflicting that. Like, already this card seems good. But then you look at what its Datamine stats are, and this card works phenomenally well with a card like Malekith. And what deck was already playing Malekith? A lot of these Hazmat card decks, because Malekith can pull Hazmat. It can pull a card like US Agent. It can pull a great card like Diamondback now, and your opponent can't really play around it. They don't know what it's going to be. So, is it that Luke Cage? Is it that Diamondback? I mean, what does this mean for Ajax? It's going to be making your deck even more consistent. Like, Diamondback goes so well into that deck. I was tempted to give her 5 stars. I couldn't decide between her and Redwing. I think both of these cards are going to be incredibly strong, incredibly sweet for their archetypes. And again, even playing this card on turn 3 into a Man-Thing in that lane, yes, Man-Thing will afflict your own cards with -2, but then Diamondback's afflicting your enemy cards with -2. That's such a big swing. It's almost like a Luke Cage effect for that lane because any symmetrical affliction is going to get doubled by her, almost tripled if it's -1. So really like this card. Reason I kind of felt comfortable giving it 4.5 instead of 5 is that, again, Luke Cage, we've seen when Ajax decks have kind of come up to the meta, Luke Cage decks start to as well, and that's going to hurt this card hard. So she does have a natural counter, which I think is probably for the best because this card is looking nutty. Datamine to appear not in the spotlight caches, so most likely coming in an event like Deadpool's Diner or potentially High Voltage, is Batroc The Leaper. He is a 1/2 with the ability when a card moves, follow it to gain +2 power once per turn. I gave this card a 3.5 stars. I think this card represents a lot of really fun scaling potential. And if you think about it, really only 2 moves, and this card is going to be a 1/6. That's already higher than Rocket Raccoon, Hydra Bob, a lot of these 1-drops that are seeing play. I mean, Silver Sable got nerfed as a 1/5 at best, and this card can be way higher than that. So I think this card has a lot of potential. Now, I do think kind of consistently triggering it might get not challenging to trigger it, but to make sure that you're leaving space open. I think the card that you can kind of best compare this to is Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night is a very powerful card that can be very difficult to use, especially optimally, because it takes a lot of room to have space to play a card and space to move that card across multiple um, lanes, and that's what Batroc the Leaper is going to require, so that might be difficult. But like I said, unlike Werewolf by Night, which while it can get very high, needs a lot of triggers, if you trigger Batroc even twice, this is going to be a lot of power. You're probably going to be very happy with it. So, what cards can it work best with? I think a card like Kingpin, it could honestly replace with Scream, where Kingpin is a very good card in decks like Scream, but it's very easy for your opponent to kind of play around that Kingpin. To get a lot of value out of Kingpin can be difficult. They can like play into it. You got to really play around. Whereas Batroc the Leaper, you just play that Polaris, you play that Spider-Man. Batroc the Leaper is going to go wherever that card goes. You play the Juggernaut, Batroc's going there. I think it has a lot of potential in that deck. Maybe even like small movers, things like Penny Parker or Nocturne, because again, it's triggering off your cards and your opponent's cards. So there's a lot of potential there, I think. One place that I'm really excited to see it, and I have no idea if this will be good, but there's a lot of synergy between cards this season because what card can be potentially moving every single turn? Cap's Shield from our season pass card, Sam Wilson, Captain America. So there's so much synergy with Joaquin Torres being an ongoing and Captain America buffing ongoings and Sam Wilson putting a one-drop card that can move around, one-drop cards being really good. I just think that they really did a good job synergizing all the cards. And while I don't think a Captain America, Joaquin Torres, Sam Wilson, Captain America, Batroc deck is probably going to be at all playable, it's really cool that they do have these kind of small synergies. So maybe there is a way to make a Sam Wilson Batroc deck where you're moving that shield around. Batroc's following Captain America's shield. It's buffing your Sam Wilson. What the rest of that deck looks like, I'm not sure, but maybe it'll be really fun. Maybe it'll be really good. Either way, really cool design. I love Werewolf by Night, so I'm really looking forward to this card. And like I said, it's potentially a lot of scaling, so could end up being played in, I think, maybe one or two meta decks. And for our final card data mined this patch, we have the Serpent Society Terror himself, Cobra. Cobra is a 3/6 with the ability you can only play this at a location where your opponent has exactly one card. Now, I gave this card 1 star. I think this card is terrible, but I don't think it's that far off from being a fine card. I think as a 3/6 with the ability to potentially never be able to play this card is not good. For one more, kind of one less power, I guess you'd say, you could be playing a copycat. For like the same amount of power, you could be playing Cassandra Nova. So I don't think that a 3/6 is going to be the right stat line for this card. Now, that being said, as a 3/7, I think that there is a chance that this card would see play in decks like Silver Surfer, maybe even some just kind of good stuff like Tempo Alioth cards with like Claw, where you're just like, yeah, 3/7 is good. I mean, we've seen Speed kind of regularly be a 3/8 or 3/9 and be good enough for a lot of decks. So I think as a 3/7, this card's probably okay to bad, and as a 3/8, I think this card would actually be good. Because if you think about it, you can only play this at a location where your opponent has exactly one card, really means that on turn 3 and on turn 4, this is probably just a 3/6. That you have to play it into a location your opponent's played a card, but most opponents aren't going to have like 2 cards in a location on turn 3. I think you're almost always going to be able to play this somewhere, unless they're specifically playing around Cobra, but odds are you'll be able to play this somewhere earlier, but as the game gets later, it might be harder. So that makes it kind of the opposite of 3 drops like Sage, where they're really good later in the game. This is going to be, I think, much more playable earlier, which does have some value, and that's where a card like Gladiator has seen some play. That's why kind of Speed has been good, because it was just a good 3 drop you could play on 3 with good stats. So again, I think as a 3/6, this is stone cold unplayable. You're not going to see this in any meta decks. But as a 3/7, and especially as a 3/8, I could definitely see this seeing play in decks like Silver Surfer or just some of these good stuff decks that we've seen. So overall, not the most exciting end of the video, but I am going to really quickly break down the spotlight caches that are data mined to becoming so you can get planning for your February season. Data mine to be coming that first week of February, we have Joaquin Torres as well as Makari and Namora. I think both Makari and Namora were kind of sleeper cards, so I could see this being a really good week to open if you are missing either Namora or Makari. Makari saw some play with some get cards out of your hand decks, as well as Surfer, and Namora kind of has her own unique deck, so I think this is a good week, especially if you're missing those two cards. The next week we have the Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross coming with Blink and Nebula. Well, Nebula has been in so many season pass cards, so many spotlight caches. Blink is a very good card that we have not seen in a while. So if you're missing Blink, I think this is again another good week to open. Nebula, not the most exciting card, but I think overall this is a good week. Then we have Redwing week coming with this phenomenal Baron Zemo art and Loki. Loki doesn't see the most play right now, but he is good in Airshim, and I do see him every now and then. Very unique effect. And Baron Zemo, I have been seeing more and more of since the release of Fenris Wolf. So I think this is probably going to be the best season pass or spotlight cache of the month because both of these cards are very good and they are really solid cards as well. And Redwing, I think, has a chance to be the strongest card of the month. And then finally, we have Diamondback, who, again, I think might be the strongest card of the month, up there with Redwing, personally. But she is coming with Nimrod and Phoenix Force. And this almost makes me think that she's going to be even better than I'm thinking, because she's coming with two kind of misses. Neither Nimrod or Phoenix Force see really any play except for the Phoenix Force deck. And that deck is kind of a fringe. Sometimes it's tier 2. It's never like the best deck, but sometimes it's an okay deck to be playing or ranking up. So not really excited by those cards, although that Nimrod art is phenomenal. So that's going to be the spotlight caches. Let me know what cards you are excited for. I'm super eager to hear. I'm really looking forward to the season, and that Sam Wilson Captain America is definitely the card I'm looking forward to the most. But I want to hear from you guys. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.